Welcome to the Chase Podcast. Dr. Ron Charles is a renowned archaeologist, author, historian, speaker, missionary, and is known as the Christian Indiana Jones. Dr. Charles has spent over 50 years researching and uncovering truths about Jesus Christ and information that proves the historical authenticity of the Bible. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and information about this global ministry.
The search for Noah's Ark was not really intended to be a search for Noah's Ark. It didn't start out that way. There was an earthquake in Armenia, and right on the border of Armenia and Turkey is Mount Ararat. Locally, they called it Agradai. It's the largest mountain in that region. In fact, it's the largest mountain all the way from the Alps to the Himalayas. And the apex of that earthquake in '88 was Mount Ararat, and it has a permanent ice cap on it. And the powers that be were quite concerned about the ice cap, and really no one really understood why, except until we found out why. And on the north side of the mountain that was in, at that time, Armenia, Soviet Armenia, was a Russian military base. It just happened to be nuclear. On the south side of the mountain, in Turkey, NATO had a nuclear military base. Well, they both denied that they had them, but everybody knew that they did. And so they were quite concerned that this ice was going to break loose and come crashing down the mountains and wiping out those military bases, causing a major nuclear catastrophe. And lots of pictures were taken, and it was discovered that the ice had been broken open. And they just didn't know how stable it was. And so one of the creases that opened up was almost a little over a half a mile long. And it was approximately 350 feet wide and about 1,000 feet deep. And within that little crease, this little box-shaped object there at about 15,000 feet. Well, the Russians accused the Americans of putting a nuclear device in there. And of course, the Americans accused the Russians of the same thing. So the joint nation venture came together to sponsor an expedition that was between the United States, Russia, Turkey, and NATO. And so they decided to send an expedition there with boots on the ground, so to speak. We had two objectives. Number one, to find out whether the ice was stable. Number one, that was if nothing else was accomplished, we had to accomplish that. Number two is that once it was established that the ice was stable, and only after it was established that, then investigate the box object, see if it was truly a nuclear device. And if it wasn't, what was it? One of the guys who was represented the Discovery Channel when all these people met together to determine what this thing may have been was a Christian. He was a very good Christian. And he proposed the idea this may be the Ark of Noah. Of course, they laughed him out of the room almost. But there wasn't an explanation for it, except a nuclear device that one of the countries had put up there. Well, to make a very, very long story short, the Russians supplied the high-tech equipment, a big monster helicopter, military helicopter. Turkey supplied the supplies, climbing gear, tents, the permission that we would need from Armenia and so forth. And they also supplied the food, camping gear, and that type of thing. And America supplied the money. Does that surprise you? And they also supplied the research team. There were 8 of us. And I was the only peon there. I mean, they had some real heavy hitters on that research team. But I was the believer that was on the group. But I can tell you this: there was one that went out, and there were 13 that came back. Because not only the crew, but also the helicopter crew accepted Christ, as well as some of the guards. We had 26 military with us. Also, NASA Geographic, CNN, Discovery Channel, BBC, and so forth. Made several trips, and we also did a lot of investigating with the heavy-duty electronic equipment. And after about a couple of weeks, we did determine that the ice was stable. And so the major threat that there was going to be another earthquake in Mount Ararat, or Aggradai, is a volcano. So it could easily have been compromised. But it wasn't. It was in good shape. So now we turn our attention to this square object, and set at about 15,000 foot level. And immediately, it was a nuclear device was eliminated because the thing was made out of wood. And I haven't seen too many atomic bombs made out of wood. And so, so now we determined, so what is it? We tried to get close enough to it. We couldn't, and we certainly would hover in front of the object, and we could look at it. And it was if you can imagine that this is the object of full length, about maybe a little bit more than the end of the microphone was sticking out of the ice. The rest of it was in the ice. And when we were looking at it, we were looking directly into the end. And so we couldn't get close enough to it. Probably we hovered about maybe 300 feet away, as close as we could get. So we decided that we would go on top. The mountain, about 17,300 feet tall. So we landed on top and then rappelled down the 2,000 feet. And but it was setting at about a 45-degree angle, so we couldn't get any footing. So we had to go on down the mountain and then foment plans to climb the mountain to get back up. And again, to make a longer story short, we did get back up there, and we took some. It was an object that was made out of wood. Our radar, subsurface radar, indicated that the entire length of all of it was about 600 feet. And it was broken in 2 places, but if you put those broken pieces together, it'd be about 600 feet. About 98 feet wide, also about 52 feet tall, a very, very small gabled roof, and kind of like a catwalk down the middle of it. We didn't see any doors, or we couldn't go inside, although there was a big hole that was ripped on the end of it. It was all filled with ice, and so we were not able to get in. Now, the object is exposed about every 10 or 11 years, up to maybe even 12 years. So it's not exposed every year, just occasionally. So you're really very fortunate if you're able to get up there when it is exposed, or a portion of it is exposed. But we did take core samples and took them back to Palo Alto Laboratories in Stanford. And we indicated that the object was made of wood on the inside and the outside of the walls and the floor. There was about a 2-inch thick layer of this gummy petroleum type stuff that could serve as waterproofing and did serve as waterproofing. And there were lots of shells and that type of stuff that was stuck to that stuff. And the walls were 4 feet thick, okay, made of wood. The samples indicated that there were 15 different types of wood. We were able to identify 12 of those, so 3 of them were unidentifiable. The floor was 6 feet thick, and again, made of wood. And it conformed to an old ancient construction process, which they called it the gophering process. A gophering process is when you put a bunch of laminates together and under pressure and makes an unrottable, undecayable structure. And it's kind of like plywood. So when you read in the Word of God that God told Noah to build an ark of a gopher wood, well, it's not a species of wood or a kind of wood, it's a process. Just like saying, build a boat out of plywood, that type of thing. If you write that today, 300 years from now, people will be looking for a species of plywood. And the same here. It was a fascinating experience, and one of the most fascinating was our pilot, our helicopter pilot. He was a devout atheist, of course, being from Russia. That was not not surprising. But as we were hovering in front of this thing, then I was standing right beside him and saw tears coming down his cheek. I said, "Is there a problem?" He says, "Yes, that's my problem." He says, "I have been taught my entire life that this was fairy tales. This was Mickey Mouse. This was not true. But I can see with my eyes. Maybe there's other things in your Bible that's true too." And I said, "Absolutely." Had a chance to tell him about the Lord, and he had a chance to accept Christ. So he was so convinced of the reality that the heart of an atheist was melted. He actually went back to Moscow and started church. And that the last we heard, that church was still going on well. And in fact, Mrs. Gorbachev, the mother of Premier Gorbachev, was a member of that church before she passed. So, but the pictures that we took, pastors already mentioned, we had to. Those belonged to Turkey because it was the boat or the thing, the object was actually, if you look at the north side of Ararat, the borderline goes right here. At the base is Armenia, and the height is Turkey. And the object was located in the Turkey portion. So it belonged, all the evidence belonged to Turkey. National Geographic paid some heavy bucks for some of the pictures, and with those, they produce a documentary that you can buy or you can see, perhaps some of you have. It's called The Incredible Search for Noah's Ark by National Geographic, originally produced in 1992, and they've produced it again in 2002, and then will a third time next year sometime. And so I can't tell you that it was Noah's Ark, but I can tell you this: that when I first saw it, I approached it like a typical archaeology find until I started thinking about it. And then I got so weak that I dropped to my knees in the helicopter. And I said, my God, people have been looking for this for 5,000 years. Lord, why am I here? I can name 100 different people right now who are more qualified to be here than me. I don't understand this. I still don't understand it, but I do know what I know, and I do know what I saw. It didn't have that plaque on it that said Noah's Ark. But it's the same size as Genesis indicates. On the same mountain range which Genesis says it came to rest. Agradai is the largest mountain in that Ararat chain. And that Ararat chain makes up the border of Armenia and Turkey. In the west, they call this Agradai Mount Ararat. Everybody in the area knows without a doubt that that object that's sitting up there is Noah's Ark. Everybody. They even have sacrifices they make to it. It's sitting at a height that does not garnish seashells and sponge and that type of thing, and it's all over the place, every place. So if you look like a duck, you fly like a duck, and you personality of a duck. I'm not going to say you're a duck, but you make your own conclusion. I have my opinion. I can't voice that opinion for one reason. We signed a contract with Turkey, and Turkey wants to make that announcement if it's to be made. Now, there's a problem with that. Turkey is about 99% Muslim. And the Quran is the holy book of the Muslims. The Quran does tell the story of Noah and the ark. But according to the Quran, the Noah came to rest on a mountain called El Judi. El Judi is about 150 kilometers directly south of Ararat. I climbed it, and I didn't see what I saw in Ararat, that's for sure. As nothing that was there. But if Turkey, as an Islamic country, comes out and says that the Ark of Noah has been found on Mount Ararat, confirming the validity of the Bible, it will certainly cast doubts upon the validity of the Quran. And that is enough for World War III. Turkey is not in a position to sponsor that right now. And so that announcement has not been made. But preparations are being made that perhaps is forthcoming, because I had a friend of mine who is in the faculty of University of Istanbul. He showed me the new history book that is coming out in Turkey for the university students. And he turned to the area of talking about the worldwide flood, and they actually believe it's true. And they even put it in their history books. America needs to catch up with them. But in the story of Noah's Ark, it said that the Ark of Noah came to rest on El Judi. Then they had parentheses, and they said, in ancient times known as Mount Ararat. End times. They fixed it. So we should be there should be an announcement forthcoming, I would say. I don't know when, but it probably will be, okay? And so that is in a nutshell what about that experience. And it was one of the most fascinating experiences of my life, and one that I could still am amazed at why I was there.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ron Charles of the Cubit Foundation. You know, we've been in Middle East for going on 30 years. And I would love to come to your church or your meeting to let you know what's happening in reality in the Middle East. And we'd love to come there and let you know what's happening, what the Lord's doing in that part of the world. So if you can contact us at thecubitfoundation.org, then we could come to your place. And if you would like to find out more about us, then go to www.cubitfoundation.org. Thank you.
The Chase with Dr. Ron Charles is sponsored by supporters of the Cubit Foundation. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and discover how you can support this global ministry.